Hello, and for my digital summary of the DCMOOC, I have broken it into three parts. Part one is what I've learned, part two is how I engaged in the class, and part three will be about the ways that I've helped others professionally with regard to what I've learned. So for this part, what have I learned? I have learned a bunch of things. First of all, what the heck a MOOC is. I didn't even know what that was, really. I've heard of one, but didn't really understand how it worked. But thanks to this class, I now get how this works. And why that's important to me is I'm hoping that as we move forward in the district that I teach in, we can use similar concepts. I've already suggested that Blackboard collaborate to our district personnel, and they were looking into it, and they've used it as well for some of the things they've done professionally, but we haven't used it as a district. So hopefully that will be part of our offerings for next year when we're trying to help people professionally. Second, of course, digital citizenship. I already knew what digital citizenship was, but really one of the things that I've learned a lot about is how to model, let me rephrase that. Better to say I've learned that I need to do a lot of thinking about how to model digital citizenship appropriately. So we're starting to think about ways that we can incorporate it into our classrooms through things like blogs and other such tools. But really, I think a big thing that I've learned is not just, hey, here's a program called digital citizenship. Rather, it's much more complex than that, and it needs to be infused in the curriculum in a much stronger, broader way than just here's a program. Another thing is teaching positive digital identities, and of course that goes along with modeling digital citizenship for our students. I think this is probably the key component, is how do we, instead of finding ways to use the technology to tear each other down, how do we use the technology to build each other up? How do we encourage each other? How do we put things out there on the web that are positive and not some craziness that happened at a party that the students were at or any of those type of things. Next thing is to go with that is all right, so if we're going to have a lot of digital infusion in our classrooms, and if we're going to teach positive digital identities, then we really need to rethink our acceptable use policy in our schools. How are we using devices? So right now, students could use an iPad to quote-unquote read a book, but they couldn't pull their phone out for any reason whatsoever, regardless of what kind of phone it was. So I was given a little leeway this year and some freedom with an iPad cart in one of my classrooms, and we just have been using it in various ways, and it really makes me think about this acceptable use policy and how we just have to completely rethink it for the following year as we move in our district towards a more digitally infused classroom setup. And finally, the last thing I thought about is, okay, so if you're going to have a more digitally infused classroom, and you're going to teach a lot more digital citizenship, what are the tools that you need for teaching that has been one of the big things that I've had to think about. And I don't really have an answer other than I have the tools I need to be thinking about it. And what I mean by that is, thanks to this course, I now know a lot of things that I have to think about when talking with my district about how do we teach digital citizenship? What tools should we use? For example, the Common Sense Media is a great tool. Blogging, how can we help with blogging? Twitter chat, I had never done a Twitter chat before this class, so that's an awesome tool to use in the classroom to help with digital citizenship. So are we matching the right tools for our faculty and for our students to teach and model digital citizenship?